Well, to talk more about that, we're joined by Bradley Bowman, Senior Director at the Centre on Military and Political Power at the Foundation for the Defence of Democracies. He joins us from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much for being with us. So, 2 attacks in 2 days. The first coming, of course, on the anniversary of the death of the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani. Is this Iran seeking revenge?
I think that's certainly, almost certainly part of it. I also think it's part of the larger grand strategy of the Islamic Republic of Iran. They want to, as my colleagues here at the Foundation have argued, they want to export the revolution. They want to evict U.S. military forces from Iraq and Syria, and they want to establish/sustain a land bridge between Iran and Israel. And so they tried to get U.S. forces evicted from Iraq via the political process. They failed. And so now they're trying to impose additional consequences on the U.S. to try to persuade Washington to withdraw those forces following what I would call the ill-advised withdrawal from Afghanistan.
And there has been a marked uptick, hasn't there, in drone attacks on U.S. interests in Iraq and also in Syria over the past year. Is this a trend Washington needs to be more concerned about, needs to be paying more attention to?
Absolutely. You know, the General McKenzie, the top U.S. military officer in the Middle East, has called the increased prevalence and use of these types of drones as, quote, the most concerning tactical development since the rise of improvised explosive devices in Iraq, unquote, unquote. You know, I'm a former U.S. military officer. Generally speaking, U.S. forces have assumed that we own the air since the Korean War, more or less, as General McKenzie has noted. And now we can no longer take that for granted. We can't take it for granted in a China-Russia context, and we can't take it for granted in the context of these increasing drone threats. They're hard to detect. They're usually easy to shoot down once you detect them, but they're hard to detect. They're inexpensive, and we spend a whole heck of a lot of money trying to intercept these inexpensive drones.
And of course, the last US combat troops left Iraq at the end of last year. Those that remain are there for training purposes and helping in the fight against what's left of ISIS. Did the US leave too early?
I think the U.S. did a foolish withdrawal from Iraq in 2011 that was a timeline-based and ignored conditions on the ground, just like we did in Afghanistan. I'm hopeful that we don't repeat that mistake. When we did it in 2011, it catalyzed a series of events that caused the rise of the ISIS caliphate, and we've seen the disaster already in Afghanistan. So I'm hopeful that Washington recognizes that the ending endless war crowd is 0 for 2 and that they don't go 0 for 3 in Iraq. You know, this is there's an interest in the U.S. in preventing the rise of the ISIS caliphate. If we were to withdraw, Sunnis in Iraq would fear that Iran and its Shia proxies are ascendant, and that would create more fertile recruitment and training ground for groups like ISIS who want to play into those fears of Iranian ascendancy. And really, this is an affront to the sovereignty of Iraq, right? These are Iraqi military bases that are being attacked. And so it just shows the disregard for Tehran and its militias and proxies in Iraq for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Iraq.
Bradley Bowman, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.